serve. Wait, what? It skipped a bit. Did as the messenger of Jehovah commanded him and took his wife, but knew her not until she gave birth to her son, the firstborn, and named his name Yeshua.
Oh, man. Good job. Oh, wait, we got to do the closing blessing. All right, and the closing blessings for the second writings. Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu hadavar ha'imet v'kaye olam nata botkenu Baruch atah Yehovah asher natan lanu Mashiach Yehoshua v'hakatavim hal talmudim. Blessed are you, Yehovah our Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us the word of truth and has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yehovah, who has given us the Messiah and the writings of the Talmudim. All right. He who blessed our forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, may he bless Degan ben Abraham, because he has come up to read from the second writings in honor of Messiah and his teachings. As a reward for this, may the Holy One, the Father of our Messiah, blessed is he, protect him and rescue him from every trouble and distress, from every plague and illness, and may he send blessings and success in his every endeavor, together with all Yisrael his brethren. Now let us respond, Amen. Okay, thanks, bud. And if you'll please stand for that's Chaim. Etz Chaim hi l'makazim kiba v'tom he'ameha ushar Derakeha, Darkei Noam, Vekol Nativoteha, Shalom, Hashivanu Yehovah, Alekavana Shuva, Kadesh, Kadesh Yameinu, Kadesh Yameinu Kekedem. It is a tree of life to those who take hold of it, and those who support it are praiseworthy. Its ways are the ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Bring us back, Yehovah, to you, and we shall come. Renew our days as of old. Amen. This concludes the Torah service, and you may be seated. What's up, guys? He's got the clicker. That's right. I did so good, I didn't even know who. Okay, so we are getting close to the end of the book of Genesis. This includes 3 more parshas, and then we'll be through the book. And it's vaYeshev. Actually, the emphasis is on the middle syllable, and it means and he dwelt, and it's referring to Yaakov, and that's it in Hebrew there. It's a vav, a yod, a sheen, and a beit. So there are no root words that begin with the letter vav. So the picture of the letter vav represents a hook or a peg and is used as a connection to add or secure. So if this is starting out with a connection, it's obviously referring to the last passage. So the last sentence of the last chapter 36, these were the chiefs of Edom according to their dwelling places in the land of their possession. Esau was the father of the Edomites. So it's connecting where their land is to where Yaakov is settling. And if we back up to Bereshith 35, 19 through 21, so Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is Beit Lechem, and Yaakov set a standing column on her burial place, which is the monument of Rachel's burial place to this day. And Yisrael set out and pitched his tent beyond the Tower of Edar. That's actually the Tower of the Flocks, is how that's translated. And Migdal means tower. So if we look right over here, they actually got 2 Bethlehems here. But this is where it's saying Rachel's tomb is. It's by Bethlehem. There's a bunch of maps when you look at this, and I'm not sure why this map had 2. I was looking at the routes and getting the distance, because I thought it was this one according to some of the other stuff I look like. Like, there's Jerusalem, there's Bethlehem. They don't have Bethlehem here. So, but anyways, he's going from Migdal Eder, which is the Tower of the Flocks, was between Bethel and Bethlehem. So there's Bethel, Lutz, and there's Bethlehem, and it's saying it's between it. So that's just to give us a location. That's supposed to be a reference to the tower. That's not the actual tower, but I think that's the area. That's just what the maps or pictures show. And then it's actually referenced in Micah 4:2. It actually says, "And thou, O tower of the flock, the stronghold of the daughter of Zion, unto thee shall it come, even the first dominion. The kingdom shall come to the daughter of Jerusalem." And that's Micah 4:2. So in 35, continuing, 29, Yitzchak breathed his last and died and was gathered to his people, aged and satisfied of days, and his sons Esau and Yaakov buried him. So what that's showing there is he pitched his tent beyond the Tower of Eder. So that's where he put his tent at. And then the brothers get together and bury him. And then in 36, Esau's sons were born in the land of Canaan. That's spell check. It doesn't like Hebrew words at all. I have to retype a bunch of stuff when I do this. And then in verse 6, and Esau took his wives and his sons and his daughters and all the beings of his household and his herds and all his beasts and all his possessions which he had gained in the land of Canaan, and went to a land away from the presence of his brother Yaakov. So now Yaakov's settling in the land, and Esau leaves. Remember, Yaakov was the one that left, and Esau kind of got the whole land for quite a while there, 20-ish years. So this here is showing the kingdom of Edom, the Edomite territory. It's south of the kingdom of Judah. There's Jerusalem, there's Beit El. And this is saying there's some differences in the dates as to how big the kingdom is, saying that's the Edomite territory, 1446 to 600. And after I believe it's the Babylonian captivity, is when the area expanded into this larger area because they were taken away. And this map is interesting because if you remember, they weren't allowed to pass through the kingdom of Eden when they came out of Egypt. So that's actually the route. They went all the way south, all the way around it, and came back up. Just thought that was a real interesting map. Doesn't have anything to do with this portion, but it's quite a journey. So Esau relocates to Edom, and Yaakov settles in the land of Canaan. And this is him inheriting the promised land, right? No, there's a famine. He doesn't stay. So it goes on. He's settling, but it's not going to be for long. But this goes on, and it starts out in 37:2. This is the genealogy told out of Yaakov. Yosef. Well, he's got more sons than Yosef, right? He's actually got 11 other sons. So this kind of gives you an insight to all the problems we're going to see in the story, how Yaakov saw it. He only had one son. This was the son of his favored wife, Rachel. And then even Benjamin, who is now born, they say it's because he reminds him of his wife's death. So he really looked at Joseph as the favored son. And Joseph was feeding the flock with his brothers, but it's not all of them. It says it's the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. So Issachar and Zebulun are the closest in age to Joseph. There's the 4 sons, and then the 2 handmaids each have 2 sons, and then Leah has 2 more sons, Issachar and Zebulun, and then it's Joseph. He's the 10th, 11th son. But he was with Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher, and those are the 2 from the handmaids. So if you look at this, all the 6 sons of Leah's being the mother of, he's not hanging out with them. So there's obviously some rivalry going on there, and it kind of gives you some insight into, it doesn't have anything to do with age because he's hanging out with the handmaid sons. So he has a good relationship with the sons of the maidservants, right? Nope. He brings an evil report. Did I skip that? Or it's there. But yeah, so he brings an evil report even about them. And Joseph brought an evil report of them to his father. So he's not getting along with anybody, really. But Yisrael loved Joseph more than all his children because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a long robe. There's a lot that goes into this in midrashes and things. And if you notice, there's a name change here. This is the land where Yaakov settled, but now it switches over to Yisrael. Yisrael loved Joseph more than all his children. There's some differing opinions about that, but it's just something to notice. When things change like that, you need to pay attention to what you're reading and where the details are, and dig into it and see what you come up with.
Do you know how many, as far as the children goes there, how many sons he had on his way before
When he left Laban,
he had the name changed? It was given to him from above when he wrestled with the angel?
all the way to Joseph, just not Benjamin,
He had all of them
except Joseph.
except
Yeah, because he was born on the way back. So, and I guess, I don't know, I might be incorrect, because where
So that
the
would-
actual
that would
wrestling
explain-
is.
That would explain why the name changed. He hadn't had the name until that point.
Well, no, here, and Yaakov dwelt in the land of his father's sojournings. When this chapter starts out, it's calling him Yaakov. So there's something going on there about Yaakov and Israel. I don't know. I'm just pointing it out. But yeah, because he would have already traveled back. They buried the father. Esau's left, and he's settling in the land that Esau had for the last 20 years. When it says the son of his old age, it says Ben Sekunim, and it means son of his old age. And I found this. It can refer to a custom of one of the sons being chosen to take care of him in his old age. Someone to actually spend time with the father, to be there for assistance because he's so much older. Because one of the commentaries was talking about, wasn't he old when all the children were born? So it's not just specifically that type of old, but when he's older and needs someone around. And then this would have answered why Joseph was not with the brothers when they went to Shechem to feed the flocks, and later on in the story why Benjamin wasn't with them when they all went to Egypt. It's kind of like the favored position. He keeps someone around with them. Yeah, John?
What was the span in verse between Joseph and Benjamin, since they were both the sons of Rachel, since they were sons of Rachel and Joseph and Jacob?
Does anybody know? Does it actually say? Because here it's saying Joseph's 17 years old, and Rachel died on the way, right? When did Rachel die?
So it was 17-year span.
Well, or would it make it a lot closer? Yeah. And it came to be, and they set out from Bethel, and it came to be when there was a little distance to go to Ephrath that Rachel began giving birth, and had great difficulty giving birth. And it came to be as she was having great difficulty giving. So it sounds like after he was born and they left Laban, on the way back is when he was born, but it doesn't say how old Joseph was then. I don't know if he left in, right as he was born or within some years. That's a good question. I don't know if anybody knows or could find that out. So I don't know. Yeah.
There could be some years, like this could be picking up after they've been there.
It kind of seems like there's a big gap, but I guess it also makes me think it could be a lot closer than you think it is, because what if they left and during that voyage, well, like if they left and he was 1 year old and Benjamin's born when he was 1, then they're really close in age.
Some other son, no.
Nope. Yeah, after him it's Benjamin. Dinah. Yeah. So I guess there's a couple years at least. And Dinah's recorded. We don't know how many girls aren't recorded. So, not only does the companionship designate him as the beloved son, where he's given a coat, or in Hebrew, what was I trying to say? On the Hebrew is described as, in Hebrew, is described as long sleeve tunic or an undergarment. So not only is he the beloved son, he's given a coat. Like I said, this gets late when I do these. But we call it the coat of many colors, and it's described as something down to their palms. There's a lot of, if you go with just the Hebrew word, it means a long sleeve tunic or an undergarment. And this is spoken of in 2 Samuel 2:19. And his mother would make him a little robe and bring it to him year by year when she came up with her husband to slaughter the yearly slaughtering. And that's what Samuel at the temple, she gave him up and she would go there to visit him. But it's interesting because like one of the things I heard somebody talk about, they all would have had a coat. So this is a second garment he has. And also, like, the reference here is a mother making a robe for her son, and it actually says that Yaakov, Israel, made it. So it's kind of like a real doting act to give him something like this. Yeah, and he made him a long robe. So that's just shows you how much he cared and thought about this one particular son, and probably why some of the animosity from the other children. So not only does he get to spend time with his father, he is given a symbol of status. And then I was heard the long clothing means freedom for work, because if you were out in the fields and that, you wouldn't wear long clothing. You would have wore short sleeves to do the labor and to do the work. So the long clothing, and if you think of robes in kind of an elite class, it was more of a privileged thing to be wearing. And here, so the brothers, they don't see themselves as the sons of Yaakov. They simply see themselves as the brothers of Joseph. So that it really skews the whole vision of that entire family. So the slander and the status gives reason for the hatred. And then he has a dream, and it says they hated him even more. So there's, and actually it says, please listen to the dream. And Joseph dreamed a dream and told it to his brothers, so they hated him even more. And then he goes on to say, please listen to this dream which I have dreamed. So there's commentaries whether it was more than one dream, or if it's simply a summary, he had a dream and he's going to tell them, or if you follow this line by line, he had a dream, he told them, now he's having another dream. There's different ways to look at it. So you really need to slow down and think through this stuff. But in the dream, they don't need it interpreted, because so it says, shall you indeed reign over us? Or this is the response. Reign over us, shall you indeed rule over us? And those are the two Hebrew words, malak and mashal. When the brothers hear his dream, they rhetorically reply, because the interpretation is so obvious. The difference in the words coming from one having authority and reigning, and the dominion where one reigns and what is ruled over. And we kind of hear about that with Yeshua in the second writings about ruling with or being reigned over, or reigning with or being ruled over. So it's either going to be voluntarily or you're going to be forced to submit. And how do we know Joseph's father guarded the word about the dream before we are told? So we're told this after, when he goes on to tell the dream to his father also, or another dream to his father. But the response is, shall we, your mother and I, and your brothers indeed come to bow down to you, to the earth before you? So the mother's already passed away. So for him to respond like that, he's not thinking of it on simply a physical level. It's a more spiritual dream if he's going to include the mother that's passed on. And then we're told, and his brothers envied him, but his father guarded the word. His reply includes the concept of we, mother and father, bowing down to the brothers. So it's one thing for a brother to dream of being over his siblings, but it's entirely different to make your father subordinate to you. We have to remember this honor and shame culture is something that I think is really foreign to us in America, but it's really strong on honor and shame. There's a couple of stories here that touch on that. But the idea is you're kind of equal to your siblings, and he can talk about these ideas or these dreams he's having with the siblings, but to take your father, who's in the place of authority, and make him subordinate to you, it really has to mean something, because he's not just going to ponder that. Yeah, Marie?
Also, when you think about the mother, and I'm not well versed on it, but a lot of Asian cultures, whoever is assigned to you to continue raising you would become the mother. So it may have been one of his stepmothers that has been given the title of his mother.
That's a good point, because you're right. It happened. There's a lot of relations that we read, son or brother, and it's kind of just brought together. But what you're talking about hits on Reuben and how he treated, after Rachel died, and how he treated the maidservant. That whole scenario, it says that was more of an honor and a shame act, as in establishing dominance over that situation. So yeah, it does really play into that. Exactly, but that's the idea. If Rachel was passed on, and he's the son of Leah, he's going to Rachel's handmaid, and kind of asserting his dominance over that scenario because he wants his mother to be the prized one now, whereas the father is still focusing on Joseph and only thinking about Raquel. So the brothers went to feed the flock in Shechem. In Bereshit 12, 5 and 6, this is where we first hear of it. And Abram took Sarai his wife and Lot his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered, and their beings whom they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan. And they came to the land of Canaan, and Abram passed through the land to the place of Shechem, as far as the terebinth tree of Moreh. At the time, the Canaanites were in the land. So this is the first place he stops once he's given the commission to leave his father's house. The first place they stop is Shechem. And it did say he bought a field there, so that could have been why the sons went that far to that field. But so that's where they are, Hebron. There's Shechem, and there's the next place that they wander off to. And then that's actually even the caravan that comes through Dothan. And then this is called Great Sea Route or something like that. Like, you can look at these old trading routes. There's some interesting stuff going on there. But it's just for the perspective, it's really quite a distance from Hebron all the way up to Shechem. And then,
Makes you wonder about the grass. Like, did they have to go that far to get even further north?
yeah, there's a lot I don't think we fully grasp. And no wonder. I mean, there's no cell phones, so how long would that take to wander, let alone go check on your brothers? And there's a lot of commentary, too, on they know there's animosity going on, so what was Yaakov doing, sending them to the brothers, kind of unprotected, on just going to see? There's already been these bad reports, and they knew they hated them, so there's a lot of that. And this goes into Joseph's journey from Hebron to Shechem to Dothan, looking for his brothers. So yeah, he goes up there, and then he gets sold. And according to this map, I haven't heard that name before, Zone in Tanis. But Joseph's brother traveled from Hebron to Zone Tanis to buy food from Egypt, a trip of about 200 miles from Hebron. I guess their trip, they would have just gone south, I'd assume, or maybe over and down. But yeah, I'm not familiar with those terms. But Shechem means shoulder or the back, and it's to incline, and it literally to shoulder the burden or to load up. And it also had a reference to, like, in the morning, like you would load a donkey, put it on his shoulders, and make it carry the burden. The brothers went to feed the flock, and they were told, go see if it's well with your brothers, and it is well with the sheep. So this is kind of the mission he's sent on. In Hebron is at a 3,000-foot elevation, and it's translated as association. But it's actually in 37:14 it says, and he said to him, please go and see if it is well with your brothers and well with the sheep, and bring back the word to me. So he sent him out of the valley of Hebron and went to Shechem. So there's just something to notice there. The valley of Hebron's a 3,000-foot mountain. So it's kind of curious what the reference to the valley is. But what it's actually saying is he was sent from the valley of association to shoulder the burden. And now we know Joseph is a shadow picture of the Messiah. So there's a lot of references we can look at. And he answering said, I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. This is him being a shepherd, the Messiah. And other sheep which are not of this fold. I have to bring them as well. And they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. The house of Israel is the flock and the shepherd. Remember when the two sticks come together? It's the house of Yehuda and the house of Israel that graft together, and the name becomes the house of Israel. But if we look at some of these, how many comparisons can you think of between Joseph and the Messiah? So with both of them, remember, Rachel was barren, and there was a direct intervention produced the pregnancy. Yeshua's mother was an Alma, was a maiden or a virgin. So the direct intervention produced a pregnancy. Joseph, his name means increase, and it was for the glory of Israel that's why he was given the name increase. His father, literally, Israel, it was for his glory that he was increased. And then it is for the glory of Yah that Yisrael is increased. That's through Yah's salvation. At the end of the exile, it's the end of the exile for Israel, physically and spiritually. So, yeah, when he's with Laban and Joseph is born, that's when he's able to leave exile and return to the promised land. And spiritually, with the Messiah, we can leave exile and we can return to the promised land spiritually. And then as a child, they were both aware of a heavenly purpose. He's telling dreams to his brothers, and Yeshua was in the temple talking to the scribes and Pharisees, and they were awed at his knowledge. They're both beloved of the Father and the Heavenly Father. They were raised in the Promised Land. So Joseph grew up in the Promised Land with his brothers until he was thrown in the pit. And Yeshua, after leaving Egypt, was brought to Bethlehem, Nazareth, and raised in Nazareth in the Promised Land. Joseph brings bad reports, and Yeshua tells us the works of the world are evil. They're contrary to the Father and what he wants, and so it's both, in a sense, a bad report. They're both hated by their brothers. For Joseph, it's his literal brothers. For Yeshua, it's the religious authority. And they both were envied. And I put that in there just because, there's a lot of these that you can look at. Mark 15:10. But it actually says it, so I don't have to read them. I'll read this one. All these had quotes with them, but I was just kind of summarizing. 15:10. For he knew the chief priests handed him over because of envy. So it's amazing. The more you dig and the more you think about it, and the more you come up with. And then in Bereshith 37:11, well, his brothers envied him. That's what it says. And then people wanted to kill each one of them. His brothers actually wanted to kill Joseph, although they decided not to. And how many times did the crowds or Yeshua's brethren want to kill him? They were both stripped of their garments, his long coat, and Yeshua, before he was crucified, had his garment taken from him. They were both cast into a pit. They were both sold for silver. The brothers ate while Joseph was in the pit, and Yeshua's brothers ate the Passover while he was in the grave. They were both raised from the pit. They were both taken to Egypt as a child, and one older. Both their robes were covered in blood. Both became a slave, one not by choice, one by choice, as Messiah. Both were tempted without sinning. That's referring to Potiphar's wife, and when she was grabbing onto him. And that's a whole interesting story. If you think about that, it's quite a role reversal for how the way men and women are to behave. Today we would consider it a sexual assault. Usually you think of only men doing that, but it's recorded in Scripture, and it was her attacking him, in a sense, and then lying about it and getting him thrown in prison. And we know Yeshua was tempted without sinning. Both were falsely accused. Both were placed with two criminals when he, out of the Pharaoh's court, with the baker and the cupbearer, and then Yeshua on the cross between the two thieves. Both could reveal what was hidden. Joseph could reveal dreams, and Yeshua knew what was hidden in people's hearts. Both were exalted to the most powerful position, subject to a higher authority. Yeshua is under the authority of his father. He is his father's word. And Joseph is under the authority of Pharaoh, who's made second in command. All people were told to bend the knee in Bereshith 41 there. I'm getting a little ahead of where we were, but it talks about all were to bend the knee, that Pharaoh was going to have criers go in front of Joseph and tell him to bend the knee. And in Romans 14, we're all told we'll bend the knee to the Messiah. Both had a foreign bride. Joseph got married while he was in Mitzrayim, and Yeshua, the idea that we are the bride of Messiah and it's from every tribe and tongue. Joseph, he's named for the increase, and he reveals hidden things, and that's what that Zophon Did I spell that right? Zophanate Paneah. That's the name he's given Israel. I'm not even pronouncing it right, but he has two names. And we know the idea behind the Messiah also is Messiah ben Yosef and Messiah ben David. They were both 30-year-old for their public ministry. And Yosef fed those that were starving during the famine. And Yeshua is the bread of life to feed all of us that are starving for the word and the eternal life. Joseph, once he got out of prison, he shaved his head, dressed differently, and tested his brothers. And Yeshua is a stumbling block to Yehuda. After Joseph tested his brothers, he revealed himself, and Yeshua will reveal himself. He will open the eyes of Yehuda and reveal himself to them. Both were considered the Savior of the world, physically and spiritually. Both were crowned with glory and honor. And then Ephraim and Manasseh became equal, and this is back to the one flock. Remember, they are not of the brothers, but made full-fledged members when they are given the blessing and grafted in to become equal part with the 12 brothers. And Yeshua has one flock, sheep not of this fold. And they were both firstborns. Joseph gets the firstborn blessing in Genesis 49 and Psalm 2:7. I inscribe for a law, Yahovah has said to me, you are my son, today I have brought you forth. So that's a messianic prophecy. So there's several. Do I have more? Nope, that's it. So there's several blessings and comparisons like that. And I know we think we know these stories, and a lot of this is, I'm still just kind of giving some basic information when we go over these. But this is some stuff to think about. Amos, the reference in Amos today, talks about a righteous man sold for silver. So there's an obvious connection there. We know Yeshua was sold for silver. Joseph was sold for silver. Actually, not to the brothers, though, right? That's kind of a misnomer. People think the brothers sold them. They intended to. But when Reuben returned to the pit and see Joseph was not in the pit, then Reuben tore his garments. And then same with, we know in Matthew, it's going through the lineage again and showing how Yeshua is qualified to be the Messiah because he's through the house of David, through the house. Think of all those women that are mentioned in that. You know, we mentioned that Dinah was spoken of, written as a sister along with the brothers. But this lists Ruth, Rahab, Tamar, Bathsheba, and Rehoboam. So there's a lot of, Uriah's wife, Bathsheba. It's just listed as Uriah's wife. But Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, and think of the stories of these. I mean, it really shows us how this grafting in process, the whole idea is that we choose to be chosen, you choose to join the covenant. And this is, again, it's the seed of Abraham and who his family is, and you're known by your fruits. So you will produce the same kind as Abraham produces, which is teaching people about the one true God and bringing people in and showing them the way to live. Does anybody have anything they saw in this Parsha that you want to talk about? Yes.
Something that made more clear, in what you brought out about the son of his old age thing that you brought out that I never had heard before. I thought that was really interesting, but I was already thinking from reading through it this time, the mentions of him bringing back the evil report. At that, and you mentioned that he doesn't really work with the long coat. It seems like he was probably just hanging out in the house with Yaakov more, and he was just kind of Yaakov would send him to check up on them and bring him reports, sort of like an overseer, sort of.
Yeah, it does say right there at the beginning of 37.
Which that would kind of explain another reason, like besides being his father's favorite, just for being a favorite, he would also be like, he doesn't have to work, like just hard labor, and
It's just in 37:2 kind of says, well, it does say, this is genealogy Yaakov, Yosef, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers. So, but maybe that's, not being sent out, just simple stuff around. And maybe it was a way to keep up on the brothers. I don't know. But yeah, it does. I thought those were real interesting things.
The picture when they reunited, it was for me the most powerful set apart spirit.
Later on, when they come back to Pharaoh.
When Father Jacob came
Okay.
and his son Joseph opens the book.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah, they go into that with the story. That's why they take his tunic and they don't just say he's missing. They bring back the tunic covered in blood because they don't want his father. They know his father will not stop searching for him. So they're trying to prove and let him decide for himself he's been killed.
the picture how he forgave them, and that was kind of powerful
Yeah.
way. He could have just killed them all and
Yeah.
was in power, but the way he forgave them, and that was awesome.
I think that's what helps being an image of the Messiah or a shadow picture because he forgave his brothers. The Messiah forgave. Both of them were fully justified in they were righteous. They didn't need to be treated like that. But they went out of their way. So it's a choice of behavior. That's what I mean. The Father he didn't pick a people so much as he picked a way he wants people to behave, and that's his family. So when we understand the Torah and understand the Father, understand the way he expects his children to behave, that's how we know we're doing the right thing and how we're aligning ourselves with his will. If you know his will, it becomes real obvious what's not of his will, which is mostly the world. Yeah, Marie?
What he was saying also, it goes in line with the hospitality that you all had mentioned before.
Yeah.
Of Abraham and Isaac, how hospitable they were versus, Sodom and Gomorrah and stuff, they were not as hospitable.
Yeah, there's an interesting phrase that I think about off and on, and it's about being the Father, knowing the end from the beginning. It says the Father knows the end from the beginning. Well, another way I've heard that talked about is to know when's enough, when you can end something and start something new. I think there's a clue there to how to comprehend how the Father thinks about things. Because it's not, he's outside of time, and I don't think it's a linear passage of end from beginning. But when is enough enough? And when are you willing to forgive somebody and give a fresh start and put that behind you? When he says he remembers, as far as the east is from the west. And it's a choice of behavior. And that's something that man's given that animals aren't given. Animals act and have instinct and have to feed. Man has the cognitive ability to reason. And part of that reasoning is to know. That's part of it too. If you actually really trust our Father, that bad behavior, that either, the Father says vengeance is his and he will take it. So do you have to go out of your way to make sure within your realm of time frame you understand that those people have vengeance applied to them? Or are you willing to trust the Father and say, you're in charge? I might not like the scenario, but I trust you. I'm going to behave the way you want me to behave because I believe in you. Not the bad part, not the evil, not the, that's what I mean. I think there's something really interesting about knowing the end from the beginning, and you can apply it a lot of different ways. Yeah, John?
When I was observing this parsha, I noticed that Joseph was already a favorite son of Jacob, got a nice tunic and all that stuff, didn't have to work. And yet, Joseph comes up to his brothers later on and says, I had these dreams, you're all gonna submit to me. Didn't he already know that he was out of, his brothers were put out with him by being the favorite son? Why would he be so stupid as to rub it in their faces and all that stuff?
My idea to answer that would be empathy. If somebody lives a privileged life and they're sheltered in the sense that even sheltered and I'll say selfish, they don't know other people don't experience what they experience. They don't know or don't have the empathy to understand the separation, to know the difference one from the other. It's almost that end from the beginning again. If he doesn't recognize that and he stays self-absorbed, why wouldn't his brothers, that is, yeah, when you talk about your dream, they're out working. Hey, let me tell you what I was dreaming. Do they have time to dream? Or are they just working their butts off? And they don't want to, here comes him and how did they know it was him approaching? Because he's wearing that tunic. You know, I mean, he was set apart, but he didn't have empathy enough to understand what they were going through. And he was so set, and that's what part of this progression is of his life, is watching him grow and learn. And there's even, I mean, think of the cupbearer and the baker. How long was he in prison with them? I think it says over a year, right? Does anybody know? But what I heard somebody say or read, I forget what it was, but the idea that these people of royalty were put in prison even to teach him how to behave around Pharaoh. You know, he was just a shepherd and a farmer and lived in as an agricultural lifestyle. But here he was privileged enough. So what was the reason for those people being there? You know, yeah, it got him out a couple years later, but in the meantime, he was able to glean behavior off of them that allowed him to elevate to another class, in a sense. Because look at how he was able to deal with Pharaoh. You know, they shaved him and changed his clothes and brought him to Pharaoh, and he was able to talk to Pharaoh. And right there, it's almost like a turning point, because he's saying Elohim can translate the dream. He's not taking the credit for it. You know, so you do start, it's real obvious to, and that's what, I mean, these stories in that, they're kind of in a nutshell of, I mean, he was 30 years old by that point. So, I mean, you know, we're summing up in a few sentences, you're trying to ascertain this guy's personality, and we don't really understand all the stories he went through to change. But that, in a picture, it shows us what we are supposed to do. How are we living? How are we behaving with our brothers, with the people around us? How self-absorbed are we? We know Yeshua, when he wants to talk to somebody, he meets them where they're at. You know, I mean, yeah, there's behavior that people need to do, but first you have to be empathetic and understand, where are they, why are they where they are, try and listen to them and have some compassion. Then you can establish that relationship, which you can help them if you know the path and want to get them on the path. First you have to be able to extend a hand to them to help them get there. So, anyone else?
I think it's picture when Joseph forgive them as will Yeshua forgive us when we'll come to him, and it's a reminder to us that we are the family, and we are one in him, and he is with us, and this is the major thing, that we are the family, and we need to forgive each other and be like him.
Yeah, that stony heart turning to flesh. If you pay attention, in part of what I mean about establishing a relationship and trying to meet people where they're at, if you listen to people, it's amazing how many people can't forgive themselves. And if they can't forgive themselves, how can they forgive somebody else? Like, literally, we have to understand the Father loves us enough to separate whatever's happened before, to allow you to be a new creation, to die to self and to move on. And you have to believe that so you can be new, so you can be different, so you can help others. But so many people get stuck where they are because all they see is themselves. It's that self-interest. And they can't grow. The only way you can help yourself is to help other people. I had Crohn's disease a few years ago, and it's a horrible, horrible, debilitating disease. It's just, and it's caused by stress and worry, and you internalize stuff. My stomach turned in a knot and broke open, and I had to have emergency surgery over it, and it was just absolutely miserable. And I wanted to be an artist, and I was trying to make it as a starving artist, and so it was kind of financial related, a lot of my stress. After the surgery, I get out, and they say, okay, here's your medicine. It's $450 a week. And I never took the medicine. That's when I got really serious about the Father and started leaning on him more than anything, and just really trusting him. But the only way I could forget about how much I hurt was to go do something for somebody else. And people aren't willing to take that step. They want to, oh, this hurts, and they just sit there and poke their own wounds. And all of a sudden, the lifetime has passed, and they haven't grown. In the meantime, there's hurting people all around us. There's all levels, and we know there's people ahead of us and behind us. Well, turn around and help somebody. Quit worrying about the butt you're looking at, and turn around and talk to somebody's face and help them. And by doing that, we're using our Messiah as an example, being a servant, and it's going to elevate us. If you want to elevate yourself, lower yourself. The Father's world is just absolutely opposite of what we understand. And even knowing that, it's so hard to act on it. John, and then Bill.
Well, I was just going to say again on your comparisons there between Joseph and Yeshua.
Mm-hmm.
Joseph went into the land that was a
plenty compared to where they were coming from in famine. They had stored up, and he was the ruler. And it saved his brothers, and they actually moved into a much better land that was green and all the best of the land, Egypt. And that's the similarity to Yeshua, in that he became king, and we get to move into we are the brothers that get to move into the new land with him, forgiven like he said, and we live in the best of the land with underneath the king that rules over us. He is our brother, because he's there, we get to see it.
It is. I'd weigh that comparison, though, simply because it wasn't the promised land, right? They were in exile. They were out in the world. It seemed really good, but look at how many generations later, and now they're slaves.
Yeah.
So it's a slippery slope. But
Yes,
I kind of, yeah, I mean.
But there was no slavery while they were alive.
Yeah.
That ended up in the children later on.
Well, and again, knowing the end from the
It goes into
beginning.
another chapter, but the comparison part of it is, to me, is that they moved into the good land out of from where they were, and they were forgiven, and they came in, and not only that, their brother is the king that oversees them.
Right,
and
yeah.
Everything's good.
I'd
in
be
their
curious
life.
what the story would be if at some point they said, okay, now we're heading home. You know, I mean, just because it transgressed to that 400 years or however you count it up. But,
Yeah.
Jonathan?
And supposedly he was in prison anywhere from 11 to 13 years.
Who?
Joseph was in prison for anywhere from 11 to 13 years,
Okay.
supposedly.
Where is it written, or is that kind of?
That's going off of his age whenever
Okay.
he was
17 to
taken.
30, or?
Yeah, and then he was.
So 17 and 13, that makes him 30, so wouldn't it have to be a little less than that, maybe?
Where does it say
Yeah,
he was 30 when he was
It did, in this parsha. You want me to find it?
It's Genesis 41.
So it's not, it's next parsha?
But yeah, whenever he
Okay.
was released, he was 30. Whenever he was taken, he was 17.
So he was in Potiphar's house for a little bit too.
So
Yeah.
possibly.
I'll find it. If you want, I'll bring it up next week. But it does actually say he was 30 years old.
But no more than 13
Christ, I
years.
command the Pharaoh said, I am Pharaoh.
Yeah,
You got limited 13 years.
so I guess if you did the math, then you could figure out that deduction, you would get that.
Well, okay, and speaking of that, think of the,
For more than 2 years, definitely.
all right, and that's something I don't know what to do. I kind of skipped over the story, Yehuda and Tamar. So that story's inserted in here.
Yeah,
But if you read the story, how many sons did Yehuda have?
33.
Right, but 2 of them have died. They both grew up old enough to be married. Another one took on that wife and then had to wait for the child to grow up. And then she had children, Perez and, right? Yeah, them.
The other one that,
He still had the one that didn't ever.
Zerah, Peretz, and Zerach. I got a circle on it. Yeah, Zerah with the dot, so Zerach. So what that's saying is that those 2 stories don't actually line up together and coincide. It's kind of a separate story that happens to be placed right here. When you look at those years, that's a whole lot of years. I mean, that would be more than even we'll go the 13 years. You know, there's no way that you're not marrying a kid at 13 and she's not having babies and, so male. I don't know. Don't get me go there.
Well, yeah, because by the time they come back, it's gonna,
Yeah. Because I've heard it said, the idea is that he's so heartbroken, that's why he kind of leaves and goes away from his, but it's just maybe kind of a period of time where he's not with the family. It's interesting. So that one I didn't touch. There's a whole lot of that.
Yehuda has such a big part in it, because it says I didn't sell him. He's the one that says let's sell him instead of, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
And then that makes me
But
feel so
what's he
bad.
actually say?
Really exaggerated.
And Yehuda said to his brothers, what would we gain if we kill him and conceal his blood? Now let's sell him. So it wasn't for his brother's benefit, it was for his benefit. I'm not going to make anything if we kill him, but if we sell him, now I can get some cash.
this might be a really off-topic question, but now that I think about that story, when did Yehuda become any type of nobleman? Because, he gave Tamar his scepter and.
Not until then, right? And I think it's just acknowledging that she was more righteous than he was.
So when did he even become, when would he have had that stuff?
maybe because of the family and because of their possessions, and just maybe he had his own little part of the kingdom.
A son of Yaakov, because then in this parsha they mention it as the land of the Hebrews. So
Yeah, so they're really kind of spread out now and have a lot, and
They
yeah.
had a lot when Abraham.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so if your dad lets you just run a little bit of it,
It's grown
it's a
since
big
then.
business. Yeah. So yeah, there's so much in this stuff. Has anybody looked that one up yet? What's that? 1022, John. It's up there for a reason. Whoever finds it can read it out loud. Phones are cheating.
I was just thinking, if John beats her, I'm just saying you need to do some Bible drills.
Okay, go ahead.
at that time Hanukkah came to be in Jerusalem, and it was winter.
There you go. What starts tonight? Hanukkah.
Oh, it starts tonight.
Yeah. So next Sunday will be the 8th night of Hanukkah. So I think it's going to be Sunday evening. Somebody texted me and was suggesting around 6 o'clock we can meet and eat, tell the story, and we keep the room dark, and then everybody lights the menorahs, which we need to check and make sure we have enough candles to do. We have a whole bin full of menorahs. Everybody gets their own menorah, and we can light it, and it's a really...
Last year when we were putting it up, I believe we had plenty.
Okay. Target's a great place to check after Hanukkah.
I have some.
Monday's
Hey, I'll take their sales, that's all. What, John?
Monday's Festivus.
Are you going to cling on a metal pole?
Yeah.
Walmart,
Walmart has
here in
the candles.
Flowwood, down in Darwood, actually has the candles at their in their kosher section. They have boxes of them.
Okay.
And their kosher section is like 5 foot wide. So
That's
I-
pretty big.
I've yet to
That's
see a
pretty
kosher
good.
section bigger than that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's surprising. Did you find your marshmallows?
Yes, I actually did.
Okay, good. Yes,
All
they have the
only
minis
thing
too.
is, all they had was the big ones. So
Oh, yeah, you're happy when you find the minis.
big and small.
Cool. So yeah, we'll do Hanukkah next Sunday. The 8th night will start Sunday night after sunset, and it ends the evening, Monday evening. But so we'll do something. We usually tell the Rabbi used to dress up and do a great story tell of the Maccabees, the book of Maccabees, and it was really great. We'll do something about it. But we can talk, whatever people want to decide. Because, yeah, when it sunsets when? I don't mind starting a little. Like the 8th night starts, so we can meet before the evening to eat a late lunch, early dinner, have some food. There's the Maccabees. Are you guys familiar with the Maccabees? Actually have a song of how to make latkes. It's the latke recipe in a song. I thought, well, I can do that.
613 has a lot of Hanukkah songs. I think they just come out with a new one.
Okay, cool. Yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff about it. Recommend Adam Sandler's song. That's always fun if you enjoy that. Next Sunday, yeah. That almost sounds better. Did you say 5:30? Because when sunset's like 5 now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about 5 o'clock.
Yeah, we could be meeting and eating by then. Let's just do 5. I think anytime late afternoon on Sunday, because we don't have to stay till 10. Then we can do our whole thing and be out of here because people have to work. So, but yeah, it's real enjoyable. So plan on that. Keep it in mind. If you have a menorah and want to bring it, please do. Otherwise, we do have several in the back, and we put aluminum foil on the table, and like I said, load it up with candles, and then we all light them. Yeah, Jonathan.
Hanukkah, not menorah.
Thank you for the correction. Yes. Has anybody tried to buy a menorah? Have you tried to buy a menorah?
No, I've already
They're-
got one.
You do? I looked, and I think I only found Hanukkahs. Like I wanted a
No,
menorah.
I've got an actual menorah. I used to have
I don't think they're that common.
But I had a menorah. I mean, I have a menorah that actually come from Jerusalem.
Do you guys know there's a Dr. Dreidel? Dr. Dre is a dreidel. If you played the dreidel game, yeah. People collect dreidels, and they made a Dr. Dre dreidel. Yeah. Okay, so, anyways, Hanukkah. We can finish the service. You guys want to stand for the repetition of the Shema? Shema.
Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh is one. Blessed is the name of his glorious kingdom for all eternity.
Amen.
Amen.
And the blessing of the bread and wine. We have a special guest.
Baruch atah Yahovah, Eloheinu melech haolam, Borei pri hagafen, Omein. Blessed are you, Yahweh Elohim, King of the universe, who creates the fruit of the vine. Baruch atah Yahovah, Eloheinu melech haolam, Hamos lechem min haaretz, Omein. Blessed are you, Yahweh Elohim, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth.
And
Taking bread, giving thanks, he broke it and gave it to them, saying, This is my body which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me.
Amen. Thank you. And what's her name?
Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you.
I have set watchmen on your walls, O Jerusalem, all the day and all the night, continually, who are not silent. You who remember Yehovah, give yourselves no rest, and give him no rest till he establishes, until he makes Jerusalem a praise in the earth. Yeshua, thank you for bringing us here. Lord, bless us through the week. Give us good health, that those of us who have ailments will overcome them. And we ask for traveling mercies on our way back to and from the synagogue. Yeshua, be with the Jewish people all throughout the world, all through Nazi Germany, Vichy France, and Britain, as the Muslims are taking over and persecuting the Jewish people. Be with Israel. Make that a shining nation in the Middle East, that you will bless them, you will watch them, you will guide them, you will give them your power, your knowledge, your strength, your perspicacity, so that they will overcome all evil, and they will overcome the enemy who wishes to drive them into the sea. Yeshua, we thank you. We thank you for giving us a place to worship every Shabbos, that we can learn more about your word, about the Torah, that where you would want us to be like you and to obey your word. Yeshua, thanks for all you've done for us, and bless us in the weeks to come, and give us and restore our health, Lord, those who are sick. It's your name we ask them. Amen.
Amen. You guys want to stand for the ground benediction?
Yahweh bless you and guard you. Yahweh make his face to shine upon you and show favor to you. Yahweh lift up his face upon you and give you peace. Thus they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I myself shall bless them.
Okay, personal prayer time.